To get started on this project, I enlisted the help of the neighborhood kids to help me unload some lumber. The entire project calls for 46 2x4s and 10 4x8 sheets of plywood, or in my case, I'm going to be using MDF. Not all of the 2x4s that we picked out were completely straight, so I decided to go through each board and separate them into a pile of straight boards versus a pile of the boards that would need a little bit more help to straighten out. Now all 46 of those 2x4s aren't specifically for the radial arm saw stand. That's for the entire project with all of the shop tables. And since we're going to be cutting so much MDF, I decided to build myself a little jig for the circular saw, since I never really had a good way to cut straight lines across big 4x8 sheets of plywood. Now I can't afford an expensive track saw, so I can tell this is going to be really useful to have around the shop. So the first thing I did is I separated out all of the different boards and the different lengths that I needed to cut for the radial arm saw stand in SketchUp. Here you can see there's the table that we're going to be building, and here's a list of all the boards that need to be cut. So I try to lay them out so that I can get the most out of each 8-foot 2x4, and then I proceeded to cut them out. For the tops of the table legs, I went with a lap joint for strength. Hide this board here so you can see what I mean. Here, I'll hide the side boards too. Okay, so you can see how one of these 2x4s is cut in such a way where all the downward force from the tabletop will be going against this flat face right here. As well as this other flat face right here. So that will just help with the strength and the rigidity of the entire table. I decided to cut these on my table saw since that seemed like the quickest and easiest option. And I think the technical term is actually a rabbet joint, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I was going to use a dado blade, but I guess I was lazy and I decided to make a million cuts instead. The table saw blade has these teeth that kind of stick out a little bit on the edges, and it makes these little grooves in the wood, so I decided to chisel those away with the chisel and make it as flat as possible so that the glue would have a better bond. I have this old picture framing vise that used to be my grandpa's that I decided to use to get things started at a perfect 90 degrees before I screwed anything together. And it seemed to work really well. One thing to note about my garage floor is that I have these floor drains, so nothing's really flat on the floor. Everything is angled in towards the drain. So I'm anticipating having to adjust the table legs up and down to get everything to be level. So I decided to use these T-nuts with bolts so that I can easily just stick a wrench underneath the table leg and crank it up or crank it down in order to get the tabletop level. where's the tape measure? Yeah, it's probably going a little bit overboard on the screws, but hey, it's fun, right? I don't know what your kids do when they see a paintbrush, but when my kids see a paintbrush, they have to paint. They insist that they need to paint. So I decided, hey, what the hell? I have some shellac here, give them a little paintbrush, have them go to town. So now that everything is level and solid, it's time to get the old DeWalt mounted on top of the stand. And I didn't want to scratch my new tabletop already, so I decided to try to put it on a couple boards and push it over without scratching anything. It kind of worked out, but then at the end I had to push it around anyway, and I did end up putting a couple scratches in there, so I figured, what's the big deal? It's all going to get beat up anyway.
All right, let's do this.
Tighten that sucker up. One really nice thing about having kids is that they can get into some places that you might have a little bit more trouble getting into. So now that we got everything mounted and into position, the next step will be to build the Mr. Sawdust table that will go on top of the saw, and then to get the saw aligned and calibrated to that table. So if you're interested, subscribe and get notified when we post the next video. Thanks for watching.